The assumption here, of course, is that there is coloniality in the pedagogy, theories, institutional structures, and practice of public administration in the country. But the question is there really? Let us begin by looking into a brief history of the Philippines and check whether some elements of colonial period are still present or practiced today. As we all know, there's no Philippines prior to the Spanish occupation. Instead, this archipelago facing the Pacific Ocean is composed of tribes, sultanates, and even kingdoms, including the sovereign state of Mai, as recorded in 1971 in the annals of Song Dynasty and arguably in the records of the Sultanate of Brunei. There is very little information, though, on the pre-Spanish era. What is clear is that there are already systems of governance prior to 1571. Then came the Spaniards. They ruled for 300 years by virtue of the sword and the cross. Some elements or characteristics of their rule include the following. So, the first is the creation of administrative institutions to further consolidate the Spanish crown's political and economic agenda. And second is maintaining a centralized system of governance. Our administrative institutions and government structures exhibit some form or forms of this. The pueblos or towns headed by gobernadorcillos or town heads, and the cabeza de barangay, now known as punong barangay, are part of the legacies of the Spanish rule. The same with the centralized system of governance, which unfortunately is still true. Despite the principles of devolution and decentralization, as well as deconcentration under the local government code, resources still remained with the central or national government. It's just a child receiving a car from his or her parents, but the gasoline or the means to purchase gasoline and the know-how to drive remains with the parents. In short, while LGUs are allegedly autonomous, they need to rely on the national government for resources. And the LGUs have been complaining like that because they have been complaining of this setup until the court in 2018, the Supreme Court, issued the Mandanas-Garcia ruling, which expanded the base for computing the national tax allocation of the LGUs. Unfortunately, while we retain some of the administrative institutions and a variant of centralized government, Filipinos also inherited from Spanish colonizers the concept of government office as a personal business venture. This evolved that as a result, we have political dynasties and unabated graft and corruption. Then came the Americans. Along with them came the following influences. Establishment of a professional bureaucracy in the Philippines based on merit and fitness. Filipinos have been complaining and even revolting against the wealth-based acquisition of position during the Spanish regime and the culture of inefficiency. So this was the offer of the Americans. Another influence is an administrative system that fosters broader Filipino participation in the civil service. Then we also have a government structure patterned after the Americans. And as a major contribution to the discipline of public administration, the United States, through the Bell Mission, established Institute of Public Administration, or IPA, to administer trainings that would professionalize the civil service. IPA is now the University of the Philippines National College of Public Administration, or UP-INSIPAG. World War II and the Japanese occupation disrupted and dislocated the political, economic, and social life in the Philippines. And it also eroded the work ethic supposedly brought by the American regime. Because of the disruptions, Filipinos became poor. The confluence of practices during the Spanish and American regimes and the World War II until the Reconstruction period led people to desire and hold on more to power, particularly political and economic power. Hence, we see the continuation of political dynasties, along with graft and corruption cases, some of which even involve Philippine presidents and civil service and civil servants. In the academic field, we also saw the increase of the number of public administration institutions. But while this, in one way or another, ensure the professionalism, quote unquote, of the members of the civil service, no significant changes occurred in the government bureaucracy. Because just like in the social work discipline, uh, the the curriculum are still based or are still Eurocentric or even Westernized. And also, there are no significant changes in the government bureaucracy because of the power of the politicians' will vis-a-vis the low and almost unheard voice of the professional bureaucrats. In fact, in a number of cases, we see career officials considered as among the best and the brightest to just sit in their offices and wait for their retirements. And we have a number of politicians telling these career officials, masyado ka nang pabibo, masyado kang bookish at pabibo. Di mo alam ang politika, relax ka lang. For our friends who do not understand Filipino, it simply means you are so bookish and trying hard to be a star. You do not know politics. Just relax. This is because the public administration discipline in the country is still undergoing an identity crisis. So while we are already in the modern phase of public administration, we still see that there is a clear fusion of politics and public administration. When these career officials, the one I mentioned, the best and the brightest, retire and they join the private sector or even non-profit organizations, we see them work with gusto and with results. But why do we need to decolonize public administration when the public administration professionals still feel constrained in their positions? Well, we need to make public administration appealing even to politicians. Lately, we have been hearing about politicians taking up public administration courses to be more equipped with skills and knowledge. Newly elected politicians also take up the mandatory NEO courses or the newly elected officers course, which contains trainings on public administration. If the courses are not appealing, they just attend as part of the compliance. Worse, some politicians would just send their secretaries to attend on their behalf. But if they become interested, imagine having a new breed of politicians with strong and working knowledge in public administration. Unfortunately, some of the methods of teaching public administration is still very traditional or to some extent colonial. We need to implement new ways on co-learning and co-producing knowledge. Second, good governance is multidisciplinary and therefore the approach of public administration must focus on intersubjective exchange where multiple social actors negotiate and implement policy, deliver and receive social goods and services, negotiate issues of representation, political control, and institutional legitimacy, and establish the means and ends of government. Public administration must also locate both theoretical and practical endeavors at the intersection points of institutions and networks where subjectivities meet, where personal meets the social and institutional, and where the local meets the broader society. Intersubjective experience is formed, deformed, and reformed at these junctures. Simply put, the pedagogy of public administration must adapt so that it will be able to serve the very purpose of its existence as a discipline. But how will this happen? How can this be done? Well, we can use the 4R. We can use the 4R: redefine, review, redesign, and reflect. Redefine, first is to redefine what should administration be, what should be its mission. One study, for instance, argues that public administration needs to redefine its mission to cater to the social demands, which are set to emerge over the coming decades. It should be digital, professional, highly skilled, operating at a reasonable cost, and continuously evaluated. The key here is to make public administration adaptive. The second is to review. Based on the definition, what is the current public administration curriculum? We need to emphasize this because everything starts with the institutions of learning. So what are the methods being used to deliver said curriculum? Are they liberating or very bookish type, as some politicians would call it, that they are out of touch with reality? How about the public administration as a discipline? Third is to redesign, ensure that the teaching methods are inclusive and adaptive with the learning institutions, the staff, and the learners being the core producers of knowledge. Make it also appealing to everyone, particularly the politicians. Outside of the universities and institutes of learning, contribute to the bigger goal of making public administration more responsive and adaptive. Lastly, reflect multiple worldviews. By decolonizing, we do not mean to lock up and bury the knowledge from the colonizers. Instead, we treat them as part of the bigger body of knowledge that includes, among others, indigenous knowledge systems. It should be noted that there are other alternative knowledge systems rooted on positive cultural practices and traditions, and those that are from the historical evolution of the Philippines. For example, because of the Bayanihan culture, the preparation of the devolution transition plans in relation to the Mandanas Garcia ruling became easy for some bureaucrats because of knowledge sharing among the members of the Association of Local Partners, the Association of Budget Officers, and the like. And over the years, Galingkok Foundation was also able to recognize at least 300 exemplary practices in Philippine local governance. This can be tapped as a knowledge resource. These are non-traditional sets of information that have been locally and collectively produced by LGUs and communities in the country. So that's all, and thank you very much.